Lakeland Public Television's Common Ground is brought to you by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
Francis Lee Jaques was born in Geneseo, Illinois. And as a boy, they moved from Geneseo to the plains of Kansas. I don't know the exact town. His father, Ephraim Jaques, was a pretty well-known hunting guide. And he would take people from the Kansas area or Chicago or wherever up into Minnesota to fish and hunt. Well, he became in love with Minnesota. So in about 1911, I believe it was, 1910, 1911, they took off with their covered wagon from Kansas to Minnesota. He walked from this farm 6 miles north of Aitkin into Aitkin to work for a taxidermist. And he worked for him for 3 or 4 years. And this piece of taxidermy up here was done in about 1912 that someone donated to us. And you can see it's as good as the day it was done almost. While he was living here in town, in Aitkin, he owed the banker, Mr. McNeil, some money. And this is one of 3 paintings, this one here. But when we first started the Art Center, my wife and I got a call down in Minneapolis to meet this Mr. McNeil. And he said that my dad got these from Mr. Jaques because he couldn't pay his bill. So we have 3 of them, and there's 7 of us children. We can't split up 3 by 7, so we'd like to donate them to the Art Center. In 1917, he was drafted into World War I, and he served over in France in that conflict. Anyway, in 1924, Mr. Jaques sent some paintings and drawings to the American Museum of Natural History in New York. They hired him, sight unseen, only by the paintings that he sent in the mail. And he worked for the American Museum of Natural History from 1924 to approximately 1940. In 1940, Mr. Jaques was hired back by the University of Minnesota Bell Museum. He was hired back by them to come back to and design the dioramas that are there yet today at the Art Center. Mr. and Mrs. Jaques had no children, and they traveled northern Minnesota extensively. Their honeymoon was spent up in canoe country, up in the Boundary Waters. He was very instrumental in getting the BWCA, the Boundary Waters Canoe Area, dedicated and made into a park. He's still considered by most people that are really an authority on wildlife art to be the best that there ever was. In 1911, Mr. Carnegie donated $5,000 to the city of Aitkin to build the Carnegie Library. Well, that was approximately 1911. When it was completed, the city of Aitkin had to contribute $1,500 more to complete the building. So this entire building was built at approximately $6,500. The land was donated by a lady across the street, and the land for this and the water tower. About 12, 13 years ago, we started the Jaques Art Center. It was called Friends of the Arts to start with, and we were a division of the Aitkin County Historical Society. And we started growing fast enough so they didn't have the same things in mind that we did, so we broke off and we formed our own 501c3. The building, Aitkin built a new library, so this building became available, but how were we going to do it? So we had the city and the Friends of the Arts and our Art Center had a fundraiser at the high school. They sold tickets for $1, and whoever had the winning ticket won the Jaques Art Center from the city of Aitkin. But the catch was he had to donate it to the Jaques Art Center. So we got the building for $1 back about 15 years ago. Since then, we've put on this addition where we are standing now called the Jaques Gallery. When we first started to build our building, we had hired an architect from Little Falls, and he designed a similar addition, but it sort of went all the way out to the street. In the Historical Society, which this is a National Historic Site, they would not approve the building because it looked like the addition was more important than the existing facility. So about that time, Barden came on board.
Well, I came onto the Jaques probably 7 years ago, and I'm an architect by trade, and I have an art collection, quite a large art collection, and the board came to me and asked me if they could see some of my art collection to display in the Art Center. And as things evolved, it got around to finding out that they were looking at expanding the Jaques, and they had several other architects look at it, and then they weren't completely satisfied with it, and it wasn't meeting the criteria that we needed to meet with the national standards for historical buildings. So I came on board and developed a new design for them, and they really liked the design, so we went with that. So we started doing a fundraising program to expand the Jaques Art Center so that we could house the permanent collection of Francis Lee Jaques, and at the same time convert the original Carnegie Gallery, which was the Carnegie Library, into a rotating exhibit for artists of the area, regional area. The community requested and received the National Historical status on the Carnegie Gallery. When we took this over and developed this as our museum, we wanted to expand for that new gallery. When we made this addition, you have to upgrade the current facility. And when we upgraded this, we have to upgrade it to meet the codes. But at the same time we upgrade it to meet the codes, we've got to meet the National Historical Preservation and not change anything. We didn't have a very big footprint, so two problems that we had. And we solved those problems. One is maximize this site. To maximize this site, we went to what we call a zero lot line. So this building is right on the edge of the lot line. We had to get our access ways for our staircases to meet our codes. So if you're looking over on the library side, you'll see that the back side of this Jaques Gallery is pocketed into the building. Why is that? Because the old building right here is on the National Historical sites, and you cannot penetrate in front of that. So we've tucked the staircase into the building, recessed it. If you look at the new access point for handicap requirements, so that we have a lobby flush with the sidewalk. To do that, we put in an elevator system that's called a split level elevator, and it goes both directions and 3 different stages. So we can access this floor, the lower level, and the mid-level floor to get out onto the sidewalk. And at the same time, it is also recessed back from the facade of the front elevation. Hence, we maintain our National Historical Preservation requirements, so we stay on those rolls, and at the same time we can fulfill our requirements. Now when we did that, we can't use the old 100-year-old single bathroom. So we put in new bathrooms, we put in a new lobby upstairs, a new lobby downstairs, new classrooms downstairs, and a new Jaques Gallery. And one of the things that we like with guests coming in here to see this museum is they walk through and we receive a lot of comments from people about they don't know. They can't tell the difference between new and old. This was after the building was done and the additions were done. The question came up from varying artists: you don't have enough wall space. So the first thing we did was we built panels, and you can see opens and insertions. So we can insert these panels anytime we need them to hang more paintings, or take them out if we want natural lighting. How do we get more wall space? And the idea came up, hey, we were at a museum where they had portable walls. They showed me a picture of the portable walls, and they said, can you design and build us some portable walls? They have plywood backing solid inside their frames and inside this sheetrock, so you can put pictures on both sides. We have approximately 4,000 people a year that come through our museum. And of that, we have approximately 450 full-time members of the museum, which is a good number, we feel, for such a small museum. Our museum, besides that, I might point out that we actively seek out artists from not only the region of this area of Minnesota, but all the other states around us, plus the entire United States and the world. So we feel together that is just a great thing for the community, because typically in this area, you know, you either have to be down in the Twin Cities or in large metropolitan areas to have a place to show your art. So we have a venue here where people can actually show what they do in their art.
If you enjoyed this segment of Lakeland Public Television's Common Ground, consider making a contribution at lptv.org. If you have segment ideas pertaining to North Central Minnesota, contact us at legacy@lptv.org. Common Ground is funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund by the vote of the people on November 4th, 2008.